The meeting room on Station Kepler 7 was cold and white, like the inside of a machine. Nothing on the walls broke the emptiness. No pictures, no decorations, nothing that suggested humans or aliens had ever lived here. It was a place built for talking, and nothing else. Commander Teo sat at the long metal table and waited. He was a tall man with dark eyes that had seen many things across many planets. His uniform was clean but worn, with small marks that told stories of places he had been. Next to him sat Dr. Hai Wan, a woman whose face showed her mind was always working, always thinking about problems that most people could not see. Behind them stood Master Chief Jiho, whose body was hard and strong from decades of military service, and Engineer Min Q, who had calloused hands and an expression that suggested he understood how things worked in ways that others did not. Then the Voxthani walked in. They moved in a way that was strange to human eyes. Their bodies were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift color like water reflecting light. Each of them had 3 eyes, arranged in a triangle on their faces. The lead Voxthani was named Kiral, and she was ancient by her species' standards. Her skin held colors that the others did not have, deeper purples and golds that spoke of her long life and high position. Behind her came 2 other Voxthani, and their skin held lighter colors, suggesting they were younger or held less important positions in their world. Kiral moved to the opposite side of the table and lowered herself into a chair that had been made to fit her body. Her 3 eyes fixed on Teo, and when she spoke, her voice was smooth like silk, sliding across metal. "We come with a simple request," Kiral said. "The Concordat wishes to make peace with humanity. We have conquered 17 star systems. We have defeated many species. But we do not wish to fight your people. Fighting is wasteful. Peace is better. A non-aggression pact would serve us both." Teo nodded slowly. This was good news. The Voxthani were powerful, and war with them would have cost millions of human lives. Peace was something to be grateful for. But there was something in Kiral's words that made him pause, something that made him listen more carefully. "We are honored by your offer," Teo said carefully. "But before we can sign such an agreement, we must talk about something important." "What is that?" Kiral asked, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "Definitions," Teo said. "Your laws, they must be very specific. They must say exactly what we are allowed to do and what we are not allowed to do. To do this correctly, we must agree on what things are, what they mean, and the most important thing we must agree on is what we mean by the word weapon." Kiral's skin shifted to a lighter purple. This was a sign of thinking, Teo knew from the briefing reports. "That seems logical," she said. "What do humans define as weapons?" It was such a simple question. In the briefing rooms back on Earth, scientists and military people had prepared answers. Teo had studied for weeks. He knew the categories. He had lists prepared. This should have been easy. But when he looked at Hei-Wan, he saw something in her expression that told him she was thinking the same thing he was thinking. This question was not as simple as it seemed. "That is a good question," Teo said slowly. "But the answer is more complicated than I think you understand. I will need time to prepare a complete list. I will need to talk to my people, to make sure we include everything. If we miss something, your treaty might have holes in it. We do not want that." Kiral tilted her head, a gesture that might have meant agreement, or might have meant something else entirely. Her skin shifted again, becoming a calm blue color. "You are correct," she said. "Precision is important. How much time do you require?" Teo looked at Hei-Wan. She held up 6 fingers very slowly, so that Kiral could see. 6 hours, Teo said. "We will have a complete list for you in 6 hours. Then you can review it. Then we can make sure that we have agreement on every point." 6 hours is acceptable, Kiral said. She stood up, and the 2 younger Voxthani stood with her. We will wait in the diplomatic quarters. You will bring us the list when it is ready." They walked out of the room with the same strange, flowing movement they had walked in with. When the door closed behind them, the room became very quiet. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Min-Kyu started to laugh. Not a happy laugh, but the kind of laugh that comes when something is too strange to understand. 6 hours, he said. We told them 6 hours. We can do it, Jiho said, but his voice sounded uncertain. It is just a list. We have military databases. We can pull all the weapon classifications and organize them. 6 hours is enough time. But Hye-Won was shaking her head slowly. I do not think they understand, she said. I do not think any aliens understand. Understand what? Jiho asked. Hye-Won turned to look at them all. Her dark eyes were serious and intelligent, but they also held something that looked like sadness. What humans really are, she said quietly. What we have learned to do. What we have learned to make into weapons. Teo felt something cold move through his chest. He understood what Hye-Won was suggesting. It was a thought that had started in his mind the moment Kiral asked the question, but he had pushed it away. Now it came back, stronger and harder to ignore. Come on, he said to the group. We have work to do. Let's go to the conference room and start making our list. But as they walked through the corridors of the space station, Teo found himself thinking about hammers and pencils and words and all the other ways that humans had learned to hurt each other across the long history of their civilization. He thought about how creative humans could be when they wanted to hurt someone. He thought about how there seemed to be no limit to human ingenuity when it came to finding new ways to cause damage. The 6 hours suddenly seemed like both too much time and not nearly enough time to explain something so large and so terrible and so essentially human that it might take forever to say out loud. They had 6 hours to explain what humans really were, and Teo was beginning to understand that this might be impossible. How do you tell someone from another world that your species can turn anything into a weapon? How do you explain that in the human mind there is almost no difference between a tool and a weapon, between an object and a threat? How do you tell them that humans had been weaponizing things for so long that it was simply part of how they thought, part of how they saw the world? Teo pushed open the door to the conference room and looked at the long, empty table inside. Soon it would be filled with data and lists and categories. But Teo already knew that no list would be complete. No list could ever be complete, because the real weapon was not on any list. The real weapon was the human mind itself, and how it could look at anything at all, and see a way to use it, to change it, to turn it into something dangerous. The 6 hours began to count down. The conference room quickly filled with people and machines. Large screens appeared on the walls, and data began to flow across them like water. Hye-Won sat at the head of a table now covered with tablets and papers. Her fingers moved quickly, pulling information from the military databases that had been built over centuries. Around her, Min-Kyu was setting up terminals. Jiho was speaking into communication devices, and So-Jin, the linguist, was reviewing ancient human documents about conflict and weaponry. All right, Hye-Won said, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Let's start with the simple things, the obvious things. Let's begin with what everyone would agree are weapons. Jiho leaned forward. He had the kind of face that looked like it had been carved from stone. And his voice was deep and careful. Firearms, he said. Pistols, rifles, machine guns, sniper weapons, everything from basic military-issue weapons to specialized equipment. We have records on all of these. A screen filled with images, guns of every kind, arranged in neat rows. The Voxthani would know about these already. Every advanced civilization knew about firearms. This was simple. Explosives, Min-Kyu added, his fingers still moving across the keyboard. Grenades, bombs, missiles, artillery shells, nuclear weapons, plasma weapons, railguns, all the big destructive things. More images appeared on the screens. The data grew. Lists became longer. Hours began to pass, and still they were in the easy part. The obvious part. The part where everyone in the galaxy would agree that yes, these are definitely weapons. But then Sojin looked up from her papers and said something that made the room go quiet. "What about tools?" she asked. Nobody answered at first. It seemed like a strange question. "What do you mean?" Haiwan finally asked. Sojin turned a page in her document. She was a woman with intelligent eyes and a patient way of speaking that suggested she had studied many things carefully. "I was reading about human history," she said, "looking at old conflicts, looking at how humans have fought each other, and I noticed something interesting. Humans do not always use things that were made to be weapons. Humans use other things." "Like what?" Jiho asked, but his face was already changing, as if he was beginning to understand what she was saying. "Like hammers," Sojin said quietly. "A hammer is made to build things, to hit nails into walls, to construct. But in human history, there are many examples of humans using hammers to hurt other humans, to kill other humans." Minkyu stood up and started walking back and forth. "A wrench," he said. "An industrial wrench can be swung. It has weight. It has a hard edge. A human could cause severe injury with a wrench." "A crowbar," Jiho said, his voice becoming quieter. "A screwdriver. Any tool that has weight and a hard surface. Any tool that is sharp." Haiwan was typing quickly now, her face becoming more serious. "We need to add a category," she said. "Tools that could be weaponized." "But that is almost everything," Sojin said softly. "Almost every tool can be used to hurt someone if a human wants to hurt them. The question becomes not what can be a weapon, but what cannot be a weapon." The room fell silent as they all understood what she was saying. The simple and obvious list was suddenly becoming much, much longer. Minkyu pulled up another file. "Agricultural equipment," he said. "Axes, scythes, pitchforks. Humans have fought wars with these things. The Busan Rebellion used modified farming tools to fight against military forces. They were surprisingly effective." "Kitchen equipment," Haiwan added. Her voice sounded strange, as if she was describing something unpleasant. "Knives of all kinds. Steak knives, chef's knives, serrated blades, cleavers. Any kind of sharp object that a human can hold in their hand." More images appeared on the screens, photos of things that looked completely normal. A hammer, a wrench, a kitchen knife, a rake. All ordinary. All things that humans used every day for normal purposes. But now they were being listed as weapons. "This is more complicated than I thought," Jiho said. He was standing now, moving around the room restlessly. "If we are counting tools that can be weaponized, then we need to list almost every tool that exists." Sojin was still reading. She flipped through several pages slowly. "There is more," she said. "There is historical precedent. Humans in ancient times used rocks as weapons. Just rocks, stones that they found on the ground." "We cannot list rocks," Minkyu said, but he sounded uncertain. "Why not?" Sojin asked. "If we are being complete and accurate, why can we not list rocks? A rock in the hand of a human, thrown or swung with force, can cause serious injury. A rock can crack a skull. A rock can be a weapon." Haiwan pushed back from the table and ran her hand across her face. When she spoke again, her voice was tired. "We should contact the Voxathani and tell them we need more time. This is not simple." "No," Jiho said firmly. "We do not tell them we cannot do this. We tell them nothing until we have completed the work. But I think—" He paused, looking at the screens full of ordinary tools and objects. "I think Sojin is correct. We are looking at this wrong. We are trying to list weapons when we should be asking a different question." "What question?" Minkyu asked. What cannot be a weapon? Jiho said. What object exists that a human could not use to hurt another human if they wanted to? The four of them looked at each other, and slowly they began to realize the truth. They began to understand that the question the Voxathani had asked was not a simple question at all. It was a question that opened up a very large and very uncomfortable space inside human understanding. We should expand the list, Haywan said slowly. We should add categories, tools, kitchen equipment, farming equipment, sporting equipment, anything with weight or a sharp edge. Sports equipment? Sojin said, her voice questioning. Baseball bats, Minkyu said. Pool cues, bowling pins, golf clubs, all things that are used for games, but all things that could hurt someone if used differently. Haywan typed all of this into the growing document. The list was becoming longer and longer. What had started as a simple list of military weapons was now becoming something much larger and much more disturbing. Because it was becoming clear that almost anything could be added to this list. Almost anything could be turned into a weapon if a human wanted to turn it into a weapon. Hours were passing. They were not even halfway through the time that had been given to them, and already the list was growing beyond what any of them had expected. We should keep going, Jiho said. He sat back down at the table. We are not finished yet. There are more categories. There are always more categories with humans. So Jin nodded and went back to her reading. Minkyu returned to the keyboards. Haiwan continued typing, her fingers moving faster and faster, as if the more items she added to the list, the more the truth would become clear. And slowly, gradually, it did become clear. It became clear that asking what humans define as weapons was almost the same as asking what humans define as objects, because for humans, almost everything could be both at the same time. The fourth hour arrived without anyone noticing. The screens had become almost impossible to read because so much information was displayed on them. Lists overlapped with other lists. Categories sprawled across multiple pages. The simple military weapons that had seemed like enough to cover the topic were now just a tiny portion of an enormous document. Minkyu stood up and stretched. His back made sounds as he moved, and he winced. This is getting out of control, he said, looking at the screens. We have listed almost 3,000 items now, and we are still not finished. What else is there? Haywan asked, though her voice suggested she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. Sojin was holding a very old document, something that had been preserved from human history. Her face looked troubled. Animals, she said quietly. Humans have weaponized animals. What? Jiho sat forward suddenly, his attention fully focused. Dogs, Sojin continued, reading slowly. Humans breed dogs for combat. They train them to attack. In military applications, dogs have been used as weapons for thousands of years. War dogs, fighting dogs, dogs trained to bite and to kill. That seems inefficient, Minkyu said. Why would humans use animals when they have better weapons? Horses, Sojin said, ignoring the question. Humans rode horses into battle. The combination of human and horse became a weapon. Cavalry units were devastating in human warfare. Even birds have been weaponized. Humans have trained birds to carry messages, to scout, even to attack. Jiho was nodding slowly, as if this made sense to him, as if he had known this and was only now remembering it. Living weapons, he said. Creatures that can think and move and respond to situations, more adaptable than static weapons. This is actually quite sophisticated. So we add an entire category for animal-based weapons? Haywan asked. Yes, Sojin said. And then we need to ask another question. If we are classifying animals as weapons, then what about chemicals? The room became very still. Minkyu understood first. His face went pale. Chemicals, he said slowly. Water and chemicals can be combined to create poisons, bleach and ammonia, acid and base mixtures. A human could create dangerous substances using common household items. Water itself, Sojin added, and her voice was very quiet now. Water can be a weapon. Humans can drown in water. Humans have used water torture for centuries. Water can be weaponized against humans. Heywan's fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, adding new categories. Poisons, chemical combinations, toxins, acids, bases, gases. Everything that could hurt a human body was being listed. Fire, Jiho said suddenly. Fire is a weapon. It destroys everything. Fire can be started with almost anything that burns. Fire has been used as a weapon in war for thousands of years. Electricity, Min-Q said. A human body conducts electricity. You can run electricity through water and electrocute someone. Electrical devices can be weaponized. They added fire to the list. They added electricity. They added radiation, which could harm humans in ways that were not obvious at first, but very deadly over time. The list continued to grow. The screens were becoming harder to read because so much information was there. The document itself was becoming too large to display properly on any single screen. But then Sojin put down her book and said something that stopped everyone completely. "What about words?" she asked. Nobody spoke. "Words?" Heywan finally said, as if she was not sure she had heard correctly. "Humans kill themselves with words," Sojin said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly. "I have read about this many times in human history. Humans use words to hurt other humans. Propaganda, lies, insults. Cruel words spoken to a person can cause such pain that the person decides to end their own life." "That is not a weapon," Jiho said, but his voice was uncertain. "Is it not?" Sojin asked. "A human reads words, and those words cause such damage to the human's mind that the human dies. That is more effective than some physical weapons. A physical weapon might injure. Words can kill." Min-Q was pacing again, his movement faster and more agitated. "If words are weapons, then we need to add rhetoric to the list. Speeches that inspire hatred, propaganda that makes humans fear each other, information that is false but is believed by many humans." "Social media," Heywan said quietly. "I have seen what social media does to humans. A single message posted to the internet can reach millions of people. A lie can travel around the world before the truth has even started moving. Humans have started wars because of things posted on social media." "Psychological pressure," Sojin continued. "Torture without physical harm, mental manipulation, the ability to make a human question their own mind, their own sanity. This is a very effective weapon." The list was now adding impossible categories: words, thoughts, messages, information. The very concept of communication was becoming something that could be weaponized. "Silence," Sojin said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Humans can be hurt by silence, isolation, being ignored. Humans need connection with other humans. Deprivation of that connection can cause severe psychological damage." Jiho stood up and walked to one of the screens. He looked at the endless list of items and concepts and categories. "This is not about listing weapons anymore," he said. "This is about understanding what humans are, and I'm not sure I want to understand that." "We have to," Heywan said. "We promised the Voxathani a list. We have 2 more hours. We need to include everything we can think of." But as they looked at what they had created, as they looked at the enormous document that filled screen after screen, they began to understand something frightening. They began to understand that the question the Voxathani had asked was not a simple question. It was a question that revealed something dark and essential about humanity itself. Humans did not think about the world in terms of objects and uses in separate categories. For humans, every object was potential. Every object could become something else. Every tool could become a weapon. Every harmless thing could become dangerous if a human decided it should be dangerous. And worst of all, humans had the creativity and the imagination to keep finding new ways to hurt each other. No matter how long they spent making this list, no matter how many categories they added, they would never reach an end. There would always be something else that could be weaponized. There would always be another way that human ingenuity could turn the ordinary into the dangerous. Min-Kyu looked at the screens and said something very quietly. I think we are running out of time. But he was not talking about the 6 hours that had been given to them. He was talking about something much deeper. He was talking about the time it would take to explain to an alien species what humans really were, and what humans had learned to do across their long and violent history. As the 5th hour began, something changed in the room. The frantic energy that had been driving them forward seemed to slow down. The typing became less rapid. The constant flow of new ideas and categories seemed to pause. It was as if they had reached some kind of limit, not just in time, but in their ability to keep finding new things to add to the list. HFY sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked at her team with an expression that was very old and very tired. We are almost finished, she said. But there is one more category, the last category, and it is the most important one. What is that? Jiho asked. Household items, HFY said. Her voice was hollow, as if the words were coming from somewhere very far away. We need a category for household items, things that people keep in their homes, things that are ordinary and safe and common. Min-Kyu started to laugh, but he stopped almost immediately. His laughter had sounded wrong, as if something inside him was breaking. You cannot be serious, he said. I am very serious, HFY replied. She stood up and walked to one of the screens. She began to type slowly, speaking as she typed. A kitchen sink. The porcelain can break and become sharp. The weight can be used to crush. A kitchen sink can be a weapon. A door, Sojin added, understanding now where this was going. Her voice was very quiet. A door has weight. A door can crush something against a wall. A door can become a weapon. A bed frame, Jiho said. He was standing now, too, and his face looked like he was in pain. Made of metal. Made of wood. It has weight. It can be shaped into a spear. It can be used as a battering ram. A bed frame is a weapon. Min-Kyu was moving around the room now, pointing at things. Cleaning supplies, he said, his voice becoming faster and more agitated. Bleach, ammonia, vinegar, baking soda. A human can mix these in different combinations to create substances that are poisonous or that create dangerous gases. The things under your kitchen sink are weapons. Cords, Sojin said. Electrical cords, belts, scarves, rope. Anything that can be used to strangle or to hang, anything that can cut off the flow of air to a human body. HFY continued typing, adding everything they said. The list of household items grew and grew. A glass, water in a glass. A human can be drowned in a glass of water. How many times had humans waterboarded other humans? How many times had a simple glass of water been used to cause extreme suffering? A toaster, Min-Kyu said. A microwave, an electrical device. Modify it slightly and it becomes a way to deliver electrical shock. It becomes a way to cause severe injury or death. A book, Jiho said, and there was something almost sad in his voice. A book has weight. A book can be swung like a club. A book can break bones. A library is full of weapons. A pillow, Sojin said. A pillow can be used to smother someone. A pillow can be used to muffle the sound of violence. A pillow in your bedroom is a potential weapon. They went through the house room by room. Bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, living room. In every room, they found things that could be weaponized. A lamp could be swung. Furniture could be broken apart and reshaped. Paint could be burned to create toxic fumes. Medications could be combined in dangerous ways. A simple house, the kind of place where families lived and children played and people rested at the end of the day, was actually full of weapons if you thought about it in the right way, or the wrong way. HFY was no longer sure which way was which. How many? She asked suddenly. How many household items are there? How many things in an average human home could be weaponized? Thousands, Min-Q said quietly. Tens of thousands. Every object in a house could potentially be used to hurt someone. And the average human is surrounded by these things every single day, Jiho said. From birth to death, a human is surrounded by potential weapons. The realization seemed to fill the room like a physical thing. It was heavy and cold and very, very real. Humans did not just create weapons. Humans lived in an environment that was full of potential weapons. Most humans never thought about this. Most humans saw a hammer as just a hammer, a glass as just a glass, a cord as just a cord. But if a human wanted to see them as weapons, it was very easy to do so. There is more, Sojin said. Her voice had become almost mechanical, as if she was very tired but had to continue anyway. There is one more thing. What? Haewon asked. A pencil, Sojin said slowly. Just a pencil. A human can take a pencil and push it into another human's eye. A pencil can penetrate the eye socket and reach the brain. A pencil can be lethal. Nobody spoke after Sojin said this. It was too simple, too horrible, and too true. And the worst part, Min-Q said, his voice very small, is that almost every human knows this. Deep inside, almost every human knows that they could kill another human with a pencil. Humans have read about it. Humans have seen it in movies. Humans carry pencils in their pockets and purses every day, and they know what those pencils could do if they wanted them to do it. No, Jiho said, his voice sharp. No, most humans do not think about this. Most humans are not thinking about how to hurt others all the time. That is not how most humans are. But they could, Sojin said. That is the point. A human could. A human is capable of taking almost any object and using it to harm another human. It requires creativity and determination, but it is possible. That is what makes humans different from other species. That is what makes humans dangerous. Haewon looked at the document that filled the screens. The list of weapons was enormous. It included military devices, tools, animals, chemicals, poisons, diseases, words, silence, psychological tactics, and thousands of household items. It included things that were not supposed to be weapons at all, things that were meant for building and cooking and cleaning and sleeping. And still, she knew, the list was not complete. There were things they had not included, things they had not even thought about yet. There were so many ways that a human could hurt another human. There were so many ways that human creativity could turn the ordinary into the dangerous. She looked at her team. They all looked the same way she felt. Sad, tired, frightened, because they were beginning to understand what this list really meant. They were beginning to understand what it meant to be human in a way they had never understood before. One more hour remained, and then they would have to present this terrible list to the Vox Thani and try to explain what these items meant. They would have to try to explain what humans really were. The final hour moved very slowly, like a patient watching a clock. Haewon sat at the table and looked at what they had created. The document was so large now that even the most powerful computers on the station were struggling to display it properly. Multiple screens had been filled with information. Categories overlapped. Lists extended far beyond what anyone could reasonably be expected to read in a single sitting. It was a map of human violence. It was a catalog of pain. It was an explanation of what humans could do if they decided to do it. "We should add a summary," Jiho said quietly. He was sitting near one of the windows, looking out at the stars. His reflection in the glass looked like a ghost. "Something to explain to the Vox Thani what this all means. We cannot just hand them this enormous list without explanation." "What would we even say?" Min-Q asked. He was sitting on the floor, his back against one of the walls. His usual energy was completely gone. How do you explain to an alien species that humans are capable of turning almost everything into a weapon? How do you explain that we have spent thousands of years becoming very, very good at finding new ways to hurt each other? So Jin was still reading documents, but she was reading more slowly now, and there was less urgency in her movements. I think we should tell them the truth, she said. We should explain that humans have evolved in a way that makes them extremely adaptable. Humans can see problems and solve them. Humans can see objects and reimagine them. This is a survival skill that has served humans very well for many thousands of years. But that skill also makes us dangerous, Haywan said. That skill means that we can turn anything into anything. If a human wants to hurt someone, a human can almost always find a way to do it. Weapons become irrelevant because everything is a potential weapon if a human decides it should be. Jiho turned away from the window. His face was very serious. I think we need to tell them something else too, he said. Something that is more important than the list itself. What is that? Haywan asked. We need to tell them that we know what we are, Jiho said. We need to tell them that humans understand that they are dangerous. We need to tell them that humans have learned over time to be careful about using this capacity for destruction. We need to tell them that humans have laws and rules and ethics that prevent humans from using all of this potential for harm. Most of the time, Minkyu said quietly. Most of the time, humans follow those rules. Most of the time is enough, Sojin said. Her voice had become firmer. If it was not enough, humanity would have destroyed itself thousands of years ago. Humans are dangerous, yes. But humans have also learned to live with other humans. Humans have created societies. Humans have built civilizations. This could not have happened if humans were not capable of restraint. Haywan began typing a new section at the end of the document. A summary section. An explanation. She typed slowly and carefully, choosing each word with great care. Let me read it back to you, she said when she finished. To make sure I have said this correctly. She read the words aloud. The list you are seeing is long. It includes many categories of weapons. But the list is incomplete. It is incomplete because humans can weaponize almost anything. Almost any object can be turned into a tool for causing harm if a human has sufficient motivation and creativity. Humans have evolved to be adaptable. Humans can see a problem and find a solution. This skill has kept humans alive on a dangerous world. But this skill also means that humans are capable of great violence and destruction. She paused and looked at them. Should I continue? She asked. Yes, Jiho said. Continue. But, Haiwan continued reading, humans are not mindless creatures. Humans have developed ethics and laws and traditions that control this capacity for violence. Humans have societies that punish those who use weapons against other humans without justification. Humans have spent thousands of years learning how to live together despite their capacity for individual violence. We are not peaceful creatures. We are not born gentle. But we are creatures that have learned over time to choose peace because we understand the cost of war. She stopped reading and looked at them all. Is that accurate? She asked. It is, Sojin said slowly. But it is incomplete. There is one more thing that needs to be said. What is that? Haywan asked. That we are not just weapons, Sojin said. Her voice was strong now, filled with something that might have been pride or might have been defiance. That humans are not just capable of violence. Humans are also capable of extraordinary creation. Humans have created art and music and literature. Humans have built bridges and cities and sent machines to explore other planets. Humans have created systems of law and ethics that try to protect the weak. Humans are complicated creatures. We are dangerous, but we are also capable of great beauty. Haywan typed this addition to the document. When she finished, she looked at the time. 55 minutes remained until the 6 hours were completed. 55 minutes until they would have to present this to the Vox Thani, and try to explain what it all meant. "I think we are ready," HFY said. She looked at each member of her team. "I think we have done what we can do. We have created a list. It is not a complete list, but it is a thorough list. It is an honest list, and we have tried to explain what it means to be human." Minkyu stood up slowly. "Do you think they will understand?" he asked. "I do not know," Jiho said. "Understanding something and accepting something are not the same thing. They might understand what we are, but whether they will accept us as partners or see us as a threat, that is a different question." "There is only one way to find out," Sojin said. She moved toward the door. "We should go to the diplomatic quarters. We should present the list. We should tell them what we have learned." HFY saved the final document and sent it to a portable data device. The document was enormous, but it was complete as it could be. It held all the work of the 6 hours. It held the result of their honest examination of what weapons meant to humans. They walked out of the conference room together, 4 humans carrying the truth about their species toward an alien delegation that had asked a simple question without understanding how complicated the answer would be. As they walked through the corridors of the station, none of them knew what would happen next. None of them knew if the Vox Thani would accept this or reject it. All they knew was that they had tried to tell the truth, and that was all they could do.